Hey guys, hope you're all doing good. In this video, we are going to be talking about 2D arrays. Primarily, I'm going to be explaining the command mesh grid and why it is actually required. So for example, here I have a simple 2D array, right? Or a representation of a 2D array. So for example, a 2D array is basically a matrix, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? So this is a 2D array. So I've created a layout. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be filling it with numbers. Now, on top of this, what we are going to do is we are going to add some geometric meaning here. So imagine that this is a plane that goes from 0 to 1. So let's call this as x-axis. And this is going to be, y-axis, where this is going to go from 0 to 2. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the x values here and here. And similarly, I need to calculate the y values at these 2 points, right? So x values at these 2 points and y value at these 2 points. I can calculate it, but here is where I can actually use Matlab. So what I can do is I can type in linspace of 0, 1, 4. So that's going to give me all the 4 values. So similarly, I can type in 0, 2, 4, and that's going to give me all the values. So you can see that it is 0, 0.333, 0.6667, and 1. And here it's 0, 0.666, 1.33, and 2.0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these values and I'm going to write it back. So this is going to be 0 0.333, 0 0.666, and 7. And here we are going to have 0, 0.6667, and then we are going to have 1.333, and we're going to have 2. Now my X array is basically a one-dimensional array, correct? My X array is going to be 0, 0 0.333, 0 0.6667, and 1. And my Y array is going to be 0, 0 0.6667, 1.333, and 2. Now, if you look at this from a geometry point of view, you actually have an x and y coordinate here, you have an x and y coordinate here, right? In all these points, we are going to have the coordinates. So what we are going to do is, I'm just going to calculate the coordinates for certain points and I'm going to write this out. And maybe I'll use a different color. So in this case, x is 0, y is 0. In this case, x is 0 0.33 and y is 0. And in this case, it's 0 0.6667 and y is 0. And finally, here x is 1 and y is 0. Similarly, along this particular line, my x is going to be 0 and y is 0 0.6667. And here x is 0, y is 1.333. And here x is 0 and y is 2. Now I'm going to apply the same process and fill out the remaining points. If you are having trouble understanding this concept, then you should fill this manually so that you get confidence. All right. So basically, you can see that there is actually a two-dimensional array for x and two-dimensional array for y. In other words, xx, if I just write down, the first value is going to be 0, and then you are going to have 0 0.3330, 0 0.6667, and you're going to have 1. And this same value, right? So I'm just taking the same value, right? And I'm looking at the value for only x. You can see that the same value is repeated in the next row as well, just for the value of x. So in other words, my x, which is basically the two-dimensional representation of my x, is going to look like this. All right. I hope that makes sense. So similarly, we can write a matrix for y. I'm going to be using blue color for it. And here what I'm doing is I'm just going along this particular column and I'm just copying the values. Now you can see that for each column, the same y values are going to get repeated. All right. So now we had to go through this tedious process, right? So when I have one-dimensional values for x, you know that there is a two-dimensional array for x and y, right? But in order to do that, we had to do all this complex thing. But in Matlab, our life is made easy by using a command called as mesh grid. So what I can do is I can first create one-dimensional arrays for my x and also for y. Linspace 0, 2, 4, correct? I'll just put semicolons at the end. So now to calculate the 2D representations, I can use the mesh grid command, which is an inbuilt function, right? And you can see that it takes in the one-dimensional arrays as inputs. Now these are called as inputs to a function, and these are called as the outputs from the function. And mesh grid is the name of the function, correct? So it has two outputs, and I'm just going to separate them by a comma, right? You don't have to do it. I mean, you don't have to put the comma, but it's good practice. And I'm just going to run this guy really quickly. So now you can see that when I did this, I'm able to generate the two-dimensional representations which we derived. But Matlab can do this very, very easily. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.